Posting to the General Ledger, Lesson 7. When you post to the General Ledger of a trader, you will use exactly the same concepts that you used when you learnt about a service business. The only difference is that you will be using new accounts that you just learnt. Don't forget how the accounting equation affects the General Ledger debits and credits. Quite simply, your assets will increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. However, on the other side of the equation, the equity and liabilities behave in an opposite fashion as they are on the other side of the equation, and so you change sign. They will decrease on the debit side and they will increase on the credit side. You need to post the totals of the columns in your journals to the accounts indicated at the top of the column. So you don't have to try and remember something new. It's quite simple. The information is there for you. The new accounts that you will need to post to in the cash receipts journal would be the sales account. Because it's an income which increases owner's equity, you would credit sales. Cost of sales is an expense, and so as it decreases owner's equity, you would debit cost of sales with the total column. Trading stock at the same time will need to be credited, because you need to keep in mind that the cost of sales column in the cash receipts journal represents the cost of the goods that have been sold, and you entered that column there even though it didn't affect bank, because you need to take the trading stock asset that you no longer have and turn it into an expense, and so you would therefore credit the trading stock. In the cash payments journal, you need to remember that you are spending money, and therefore your trading stock is increasing, and so you would debit the trading stock account. Let's have a look at how it actually looks. Use your highlighters to highlight where the amounts go to. In the cash receipts journal, your sales column total will be posted to the sales account on the credit side, as you can see here in pink. Note that the contra account, or the details inside the sales account, is bank. That is because when you entered the amounts into the sales column in the CRJ, they also went into the bank column, or analysis of receipts as you received the money, which simply is a crutch for bank. The cost of sales amount will be posted to the debit side of the cost of sales account, as it's an expense and decreases owner's equity. The contra account here is trading stock, because at the same time you need to remember to post this amount to the credit side of trading stock, as it is an asset that is decreasing. You are selling the stock and you no longer have this asset. Notice at the same time you would need to enter your folio references, which for all of these is the cash receipts journal, or CRJ. This is simply an indication of where the information came from. In the cash payments journal, you would use your trading stock column total and post it to the debit side of the trading stock account, as you are increasing this asset. Your contra account would be bank, quite simply because when you entered the amounts into the trading stock column in the CPJ, you would have entered the amounts into bank and trading stock. So bank is the other account involved for this transaction. The folio would be CPJ, as this indicates where you got the information from. Let's have a look at example 4.7. Use your pink highlighter to highlight the capital balance. You can see that the balance given is 50,000 Rand, and in the general ledger, you would need to show this in the capital account on the credit side. Why the credit side? Because it is an owner's equity account, and equity has a positive balance on the credit side. Drawings is also an equity account. However, it has a debit balance, as drawings reflects a negative entry in equity, or where the equity is decreasing. Equipment is an asset, and as such, it would have a debit balance, as assets show their positives on the debit side. The same can be said for trading stock, which is also an asset and so would also have a debit balance. Bank has a debit balance as this is told to you. If nothing is said, you can assume that bank would have a positive balance or a debit balance. If it has a credit balance, this simply indicates that the business has gone into overdraft and money is owed to the bank as more has been spent than was received. Sales of 84,000 Rand have been made this period. You would show this on the credit side of the sales account as it is an equity account and sales increases owner's equity. Cost of sales is an expense, and because expenses make equity smaller, it will have a debit balance. Rent income is an income, as the name describes, and so it would have a credit balance, increasing owner's equity. Stationery, on the other hand, is an expense, which decreases owner's equity. Now that you've entered all the balances that have been given, you will need to post from the journals. In the cash receipts journal, you would first enter all the sundry account information, as these would be posted on the day that the transaction happened, compared to the totals, which are only posted at the end of the month. Make sure that you do all your posting very methodically, in other words, one by one, so that you don't leave something out. The amount for 2,000 Rand here, it's indicated that it needs to go to rent income, and so you would show it in that account. You will enter it on the credit side as it's an income account which increases equity. The day will be the 4th because you enter a sundry amount on the day that it happened. The contra account is bank because if you have a look here, you can see the 2,000 was in sundries, and where else could you see it? It's in the analysis of receipts column. Don't be confused by the fact that there's 10,000 in bank. That is simply an indication that a total deposit was made on the 4th of both the 2,000 Rand for B. Smith and the 8,000 for cash sales together. For the rent income, it was only the 2,000 that you are looking at, but it was in analysis, which represents bank. So bank is your contra account. Your folio is CRJ5, as this is where the information came from, and obviously the 2,000 is given. When you are doing this yourself, I would recommend that you enter the amount first to anchor your entry. Work out which side it goes on and put it in the right place. Then go and enter the date, the contra account, and the folio as you like. In the cash payments journal, you're now also going to the sundry accounts first because of date order. And you can see there's a purchase of equipment that happened on the 5th. They take that 20,000, realize that if you're paying money, you must have bought equipment, so equipment is increasing, and your asset will be increasing and therefore debited. Put your 20,000 on the debit side. Your day will be the 5th, details bank. Again, have a look. You can see 20,000 in equipment in the CPJ, and also it was in the bank column. Your folio is CPJ5 as that is where it came from. Now that you've done your sundries, you can enter your totals. There's no need to enter analysis of receipts because you've totaled it every single day, and that's why you did not do a total at the end of the month. The bank column, 17,000 Rand, indicates all the money that was received this month. So in the bank account, you will debit the amount of 17,000 Rand as bank and asset is increasing. Since the 17,000 represents both sales and rent income in this case, and possibly all sorts of other accounts in another month, you can simply record it as sundry accounts, which saves you time instead of having to say sales and rent income and. The folio is the CRJ5 and the amount is 17,000 Rand. The sales column will be posted to the credit side of the sales account. As described earlier, your bank is the contra account and you will enter it as CRJ5, 15,000 Rand, as that is the total of the column. Notice, by the way, that as we are entering each of these amounts, in the journal, you are also making a note of the folio references. Rent income here went to account N3, bank to B5, and over here you can clearly see sales is the account N1, and so you show that in the journal to show where the information went to, in the same way that in the ledger you showed where it came from with your journal folio reference. The cost of sales account will get posted to cost of sales on the debit side. Your contra account is trading stock, not bank. You can't see the cost of sales figures in the bank column, can you? The 3,500 only appears in cost of sales, and so does the 4,000. This is because these amounts have been entered only in one column. However, remember that that column also represents the trading stock account. So we are not finished by entering this into the cost of sales account. We also need to show it on the credit side of trading stock, as my asset has decreased. Again, note that my contra account is cost of sales. These two accounts together will show that I have taken my asset and turned it into an expense. From the cash payments journal, we will post the bank total to the credit side of the bank account as the bank is decreasing and an asset decreases on the credit side. Again, I can show my details as sundry accounts, as that 31,500 represents amounts in trading stock, stationery, and equipment, and possibly many other things very often. The trading stock column gets posted to the debit side of trading stock as you bought trading stock. Notice your details is the bank account, as this is where you can see the entries. There's 2,500 Rand in trading stock and in the bank column. The same can be said for the 5,000, even though it is totaled with stationery to get the 6,000 in bank. The 3,000 can again clearly be seen in both bank and trading stock. You do not post the 10,500 to cost of sales as well, as there is no cost of sales here. You are not selling stock, but only buying it. So in the same way that you will post stationery to stationery, you only post the trading stock amount in the cash payments journal to the trading stock account. Be very careful not to get confused here. The stationery column gets posted to the debit side of the stationery account, as it is an expense and it decreases equity. If you have a look at all your general ledger accounts now, you will simply need to balance the accounts that have got more than one transaction in. Capital and drawings have only one entry, so there's nothing you need to do. Equipment has entries only on one side, so you will need to do a subtotal. In other words, put a single line above and then work out the amounts. Do not underline this amount of 85,000, as next month you will carry on working underneath it. The trading stock account will need to be balanced. You will do this in exactly the same way as you balanced bank last year. You look to see which is the biggest side. Since it's impossible to have a negative stock balance, you would take the debit side as your total and put the 14,500 as totals. Please make sure that it's on the same line and make sure that it's the total of the bigger side. Make sure that you've entered it the same amount. You will then on the credit side fill in the missing figure, which in this case is 7,000 Rand. Then take that down to the beginning of the next month on April the 1st as a balance brought down. Bank will be totaled using exactly the same methodology. However, in the example that you have here, you had more payments than receipts and the balance at the beginning. In other words, your bank has gone into overdraft. Do not let this scare you. Quite simply, when you see that the credit side is bigger, put the credit side into the totals and then fill in the gap and bring it down on the credit side. The sales account has a credit subtotal. You do not need to balance as there's nothing on the debit side. Do exactly the same for cost of sales and rent income and stationery. Draw up your trial balance by simply taking your subtotals and your balances from the general ledger and transferring them into the trial balance as you can see over here. Notice it is the balances at the end of the month, not the beginning of the month and not the transactions in the middle, although these balances do represent everything that took place. At the end, check that the totals are equal and then you know that you've made no mistake. You are now ready to do exercise 4.8 on your own. before going on to Lesson 8 to market.